Hi, today we're going to talk about some propaganda techniques. The first one that we're going to do in this short screencast is the propaganda technique of name calling. As you can see in this picture, you have a depiction of Barack Obama, and beneath is the word snob, and the caption says it's an elitist thing. So this picture is used to suggest that Obama is an elitist. And if you are a person who doesn't care for elitists, then what you get out of this picture is that Obama thinks he's above you. So it doesn't matter what his idea is, it's always going to be just because he's an elitist. This is an example of name calling. Name calling is also known as stereotyping or ad hominem attack. This is a type of propaganda that asks the audience to disregard another person's ideas because of the person's personal characteristics or group identity. When it's about his personal characteristics, this is one that we're more likely calling ad hominem attack. When it's more about group identity, then we're going to call that stereotyping. So, for example, about the personal characteristics, you might, an exaggerated example of this would be to say, that person is a jerk, and so we shouldn't listen to his ideas about how to do our homework. When we're talking about group identity or stereotyping, the idea is we shouldn't listen to that person's idea because that person is gay or because that person is Chinese. All right, let's look at some examples. Here's a famous one that happened in the recent U.S. elections. Actually, all of these examples are going to come from the U.S. elections. Donald Trump famously said about his rival, Carly Fiorina, he said, "Look at that face. Would anyone vote for that? Can you imagine that, the face of our next president?" So the suggestion here is that you shouldn't vote for her because she's ugly, which has, I think you can see, very little to do with why you should cast your votes. So it's a personal attack on her. Don't listen to her ideas. She's ugly. Here's another one. This is Senator Ted Cruz, and the caption says, "Who do you trust your future to? A slimy, burrowing, repulsive animal." So obviously, you're not going to trust your future to a slimy, burrowing, repulsive animal, but to suggest that a person is one of those things is attacking them with negative words that are not relevant to the conversation. Okay, here are some other examples that emerged in the recent elections. Donald Trump was famously called by a reporter a short-fingered vulgarian. Okay, and this attack, this name calling, came up over and over again. So, if we're talking about Donald Trump's tax policy, we can see very clearly that whether or not his fingers are short and whether or not he uses vulgar language are entirely irrelevant in assessing whether or not his tax policy is valid. But this short-fingered vulgarian name calling has stuck with him, and people like to bring it up again because it seems to irritate him. But it's not relevant. It's an example of name calling propaganda. Trump himself called his opponent Hillary Clinton Crooked Hillary, and he used this term Crooked Hillary no matter what ideas were being assessed. So the suggestion here is that Hillary Clinton had in her past some scandals that suggested that she was not totally honest. Now, first of all, this is an ad hominem attack that is not true. That when compared by a nonpartisan watchdog organization, Hillary Clinton's statements were found to be a great deal more honest than Trump's. But that is not what makes it name-calling propaganda. What makes it name-calling propaganda is that it's linking a negative name to her regardless of what she says. So, for example, if she says, that she has an immigration policy, and you can check it out on her website, Trump will respond to her calling her Crooked Hillary. This is not relevant. Okay, here's another example. One of the people who introduced Trump at the Republican convention said that our number one problem, our number one agenda should be radical Islamic terrorism. Now, when we're talking about a political candidate, it's not perfectly clear why an approach to radical Islamic terrorism would be different from an approach to any type of terrorism. So referring to radical Islamic terrorism is a kind of name calling that is supposed to link people who follow the Islamic faith with radicals and with the acts of terrorism. Again, not strictly true, and more to the point, irrelevant to how that person should be approaching the concept of terrorism.